the return of the cassettes, and he said
Child's play.
Yeah, he said in quantum physics, the only explanation we have that even hints at that is called entanglement. We talked about entanglement and that maybe everything's entangled since the Big Bang. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, we've been talking about it already, about the content of the vortex and about the knowledge of your inner being / source energy, which are all one and the same, who always know where you are in any moment in time in relationship to everything you want. And so that timing that we're talking about is always about your readiness. So often unconsciously you're getting ready to be ready to be ready to be ready, and then these things feel like astonishing synchronicity, when what happened is you were ready to be 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 ready. It's the reason that we want you just for a little while to consider that you're not thinking thoughts, you're receiving thoughts, and that there are those who are in vibrational alignment with you, who know what you're asking for and who know right where you are. There is nothing unusual about any of this. This is the way it is all supposed to be. Your inner being knows what your requests are. That's what Esther meant when she said to you, formulate what you want to talk about, or just come in your knowingness of what it is, and it will be part of the conversation here today. She hears it in seminar after seminar after seminar after seminar, because your inner being knows who you are and what you want and where you are in readiness for it. And really the most significant part of your question and our answer lies in your readiness to receive, because the timing of that could have been in an entirely different time, but it all had to do with your readiness for it. You see what we're getting at? Imagine that your inner being is all knowing, as your inner being is, about you and what's in your heart and what you've lived and even the contrast you've lived and what you've evolved to as a result of it. What if your inner being knows all that you've become? What if all of that had already happened? What if what you're calling now, as you think about the past and then the present, what if it's all old news? And what if this vortex, which is present tense by our standard, what if everything that you've been asking for is present tense? What if it's all present? What if your friend's desire to communicate with you was present tense always? And what if your desire to communicate was present tense? What if you were so connected to your vortex that it was all present tense, and then you get into the receiving mode where what is present tense can come into your world that you think is present? Getting a little whiff of that? What is a manifestation anyway? It's an awareness, it's a perception. What is time anyway? It's awareness or a perception. And so it's a beautiful thing when a group of people can come together like you all have, and here we are in this room, and you think you're experiencing, and you are, this physical environment, but there is another environment that you are tapped into at the same time, which holds everything that you are about, everything that you want to understand, and everything that you want to know. And as we visit with you about things that at many levels of your being you already know, and as we sort of cajole you and kid you and play with you and reach you through the things that Esther finds words to say that we mean, as you little by little, even in the framework of a morning like this, find vibrational alignment with who you really are, now you're ready for more of that, what you want to call divine timing, where you're just in the receptive mode. Everything in your vortex is ready to be received by you now. There's not this holding pattern ready to be revealed. The reveal button is on. We're all up here. Reveal it all. Give it all to him. Give him all that he can receive, all that he can receive, all that he's vibrationally ready for. So sometimes it's helpful for you to have a little timing which causes you to receive back some recordings, and have a little insight that, oh look, some of them are rewound and some of them aren't, and then something that occurs to you, maybe there's something here for me, and then a willingness to follow that because it's strong enough to put it in, and led through the path of least resistance to the things that you want most. to a manifestation that you were yearning for and asking for. But when yearning is stronger than believing, you don't have the experience. And the universe has the ability to deliver to you perfect timing on all things. So we're not asking you to get into the revelation mode. We're asking you to get into the receiving mode. And we're not telling you you've got to find perfect timing for the revelation, because the revelation is always coming. It's always a good time by our standards. It's always a good time for you to receive what you want to call the miracle, which we call the child's play, easiest thing in the whole world to give you anything and everything that you've been asking for. You just got to be ready for it. And if you're not ready for it, you're not ready for it. And we don't mean that you should be ready for it. We don't mean that at all. We don't mean you need to get ready. We just mean you don't want to receive things that you're not ready for. You know what happens when you receive something you're not ready for? You freak out or you miss it altogether. So this is a conversation about your readiness.
Thank you. And I've got to say this. 5 weeks ago, I walked into my ophthalmologist for a routine checkup. And
how are your breasts?
And I think they're okay. But I think this is really relevant. He said that I have an eye disease in both eyes, and I can spontaneously go blind today or any day, or more slowly go blind. And I've been filled with terror ever since then. And I had no known thoughts that would have brought about that manifestation ahead of time. I thought everything was fine.
Why were you there?
Well, they're routine checkups, just, a history of glaucoma in the family, but it wasn't that at all. Macular degeneration. So
there's macular degeneration in the perceived what is, and there's continual rejuvenation and renewal and replenishment in the vibrational realm. So the key is, how are you going to keep the terror of the proclamation? How are you going to keep that inactive enough that you can find vibrational alignment with replenishment? That's the big question, isn't it? How can I not be so distracted by what is? How can I get my cork to float again? Let go of it. It'll float. You see, we just think that this is divine timing in the story that you told us earlier, because you told us about all these things that just came into place. And it works both ways, doesn't it? Things come into place to support your desire, and things come in place to support your fear. Things will just line up. One time, several years ago, Esther's father was in the hospital with a heart thing. And the doctor had not just asked, he had somewhat demanded that everyone in the family be there for his conversation. And Esther and Jerry were in their bus driving across New York State, and they were not going to be able to be there. And Esther said, what about a conference call? And so they beamed her in. Esther remembers sitting on a picnic bench with a satellite phone, because there was no cellular reception where they were, having this conversation and hearing. And the doctor admonished his daughters to come to see him immediately, because what their father had, they most likely had too, and they should get there right away. And Esther said, you're cutting out. And then the phone went dead because Esther pushed the button. But he planted a seed of concern. So then Jerry and Esther went about what they were doing, and eventually, because they were driving that big bus around the country, and eventually made their way back to Texas, and they were building a new house. And in the new house, Jerry always wanted a root cellar. He always wanted a place where he could have some roots. And Esther thought that was fine as long as he never asked her to go into the root cellar. So they had a big tank. It was actually a water storage tank placed in the floor of their large garage. And there was a ladder down into it, and Jerry just thought that this would be a fine place for roots, a nice dark place for the garden that he was going to have. But since it was in the garage, you had to be able to drive over it. So the root cellar had a really heavy steel lid. And so he put a 2x4 through it, and he said to Esther, you get that end and I'll get this end, and we'll just take the lid off of this thing. So they did, Esther lifted the lid. They lifted the lid off. And then in a couple of days, Esther had sharp pains under her left rib. Oh my God, it's the heart. It's the heart. She went right to what the doctor had encouraged her to worry about and forgot completely that she'd lifted a 100-pound lid off of the root cellar. Didn't even think about maybe having pulled loose a little tissue or strained a little muscle. Never occurred to her because she was in that mode. And so she suffered and worried and suffered and worried, and then realized that they had actually been guided to the experience that would produce the evidence that would support the theory that had been presented to them, because that's what creation is. You create your own reality, wanted or not wanted, you see. So we would never get in a place of quibbling with the medical community or of disagreeing with what they are concluding as they are looking into the now. And we would never discourage anyone from following the advice of their physicians as they are living in the now. But at the same time that you are doing whatever you are doing at dealing with whatever they're helping you to emphasize that is, we for sure, if we were standing in your physical shoes, would be finding the reset button on who we really are. We would be finding that place of non-resistance, because we know what physical bodies can do in a place of non-resistance, because we know that you have trillions of cells in your body, and that those cells, if left unfettered by your negative resistance and vibration, can have clear communication with source energy, the same source energy that created them to begin with, the same source energy that when you were a little smear no bigger than a little dot on a petri dish, that then blossomed into this full-blown physical apparatus that has all of this magnificent, incredible ability to be what you are. That same energy that helped you grow from that seed into this being is still flowing to you and through you. You have as much access to that beginning understanding of who you are that you ever had. In other words, your physical apparatus can be renewed, but you've got to open the valve. You've got to open the circuits and let the renewal take place. That asks a lot of you, because you're so accustomed to facing reality. And once somebody else has faced your reality and has written it down, our friend got a piece of paper that says she has healthy breasts, and you've got a piece of paper that says your eyes are not healthy. And we say, don't you have anything to say about any of this? And what's so important about the what is now anyway? There it went again, 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 there it went again. This is going to take a while. There it went again, 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 there it went again. There it went again. And somewhere, as it's coming and going and coming and going and coming and going and coming and going, you have the ability, you have the right, you certainly have the ability to find your true center and allow your physical apparatus to rejuvenate in the way the cells of your body know how to do. They keep telling you that your cells are replacing themselves however often. How often? How often do your cells replace themselves? I don't even recognize myself. I don't even recognize myself. Well, you sort of kind of do, because you keep replicating, because you're so used to looking at yourself that scar, that was a potato peeler. That scar keeps showing up, because there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. You sort of look for it on a regular basis. Yeah, peeling potatoes one day, sliced off knuckle. You don't have to do that. Your physical body will regenerate itself as the image of your mind holds, you see. So if we were you, we'd just mess around with this a little bit and just discover how powerful you really are. And you know what we've noticed about most of you? Most of you don't try till you get in a corner. Most of you won't meditate until somebody tells you you've got something deadly. Sort of the last ditch thing. All right. We just love it when you get yourself in a bind, because finally you do the only thing that ever works anyway. Replenishment mode, reception mode. That's the answer. Enough? Really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.